Sorry, no.
Hi there and welcome to the Londonist News.
I'm Maliyah, here with Amy, and we are presenters for the day.
How are you feeling, Maliyah, ahead of today's live show?
I'm actually really looking forward to it. I want to see what's in store. What about you?
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a jam-packed show. So very interesting.
Yes, because we've got an exciting lineup for you today with lots of stories from around London, so make sure that you stay tuned.
Yeah, we've got stories from across the city, from the mental health benefits of pottery to the popularity of powerlifting.
Also, our reporters will be giving us live updates throughout the show.
From news, sports, health and entertainment, there's truly something for everyone.
Yes, but it's going to be a really busy show. But first up, our reporter Amy has been investigating the impact of the cost of living crisis on local theatres.
Struggling hugely.
So it's very tricky for us at the moment.
We are filling in, I think, where the West End is failing.
We're all feeling the pinch of the cost of living crisis. So what happens when you're a small theatre putting on multiple productions a year? How do you balance keeping ticket prices low as well as getting by? I've been speaking to small theatres across South West London to discuss the cost of living crisis and keeping ticket prices accessible. First up, I headed to Network Theatre in Waterloo to find out how local theatres work and to speak about the difficulties they face.
Hello, I'm Susan Small and I'm chairman of Network Theatre Company, which is the resident company of Network Theatre in Waterloo underneath the railway station arches. We have no paid staff here. We have no subsidies or grants or income from anyone. We're not a charity. So we fund our theatre, really each show funds the next show. So our our only income is from ticket sales, bar sales, which the bar is open before a show, during the interval and after a show, and our membership fees. We're relying on our bar sales, which is quite difficult for us. We're relying on our membership fees, but they're very, very low. It's £10 a year to be a member, but I think that's important to keep us accessible. There's no point us charging £100 a year membership because we wouldn't get any members. So it's very, very hard at the minute to balance keeping costs down for members and the audience alike who are coming to see our shows and paying the rent. We're a bit on a tightrope at the moment. Network Rail are the people that own these arches. We pay them rent to be here, and currently we're struggling rather because they want to put our rent up every year incrementally 10%. Now, we don't feel we can put our prices up by 10% every year. That's not going to make us viable. We certainly are not selling out our shows in the way that we certainly seemed to do. You know, every couple of shows would be complete sellouts, and that's selling 69, 70 tickets per performance, and we're finding, you know, we might have half that number in for a show, which is, you know, really sad. It's sad for the actors not to have a sellout show, and it's sad for us because, you know, we've had to obviously pay a license fee to put the play on. We have actually increased the number of shows we do a year, and that's quite tight in terms of trying to find rehearsal space here and space for the shows. But we now run an average of 6 shows, 6 productions. That's full-length shows a year, and that's helping us bridge the gap.
Susan's concerns surrounding the cost of living crisis were echoed by Nigel from Hampton Hill Theatre, which is a 15-minute walk from Teddington Station.
My name's Nigel Cole, and I'm a non-executive director here at Teddington Theatre Club that owns and runs Hampton Hill Theatre. And my role has been to drive fundraising. Funding for the theatre, the main source comes from our ticket sales, which come from the 10 shows that we do a year. Given the age of the building and given the things that constantly need to be done to it, that doesn't provide generally enough, you know, revenue to be able to spend on those sorts of projects. And this is a challenge not just for us, but for every theatre pretty much in the country. Where we're fortunate is that we have, on the whole, free labour, where if it's things that can be done by volunteers, they will do them. What we've faced is anything that requires any professional construction expertise now has cost more money. And anything regarding our set, you know, when we build sets, wood in particular has gone up, you know, significantly in the last 5 years. So that impacts, you know, quite a lot on what we can do. But we are very fortunate in that we have very, you know, creative set designers and people who can put their minds to, you know, the cheapest way that we can possibly do things.
The West End is becoming increasingly more expensive, so does the difference between the two lie in the price of a ticket, or is it something much more meaningful? I visited the Mary Wallace Theatre in Twickenham to find out more.
My name is Harry Medwer, and I'm the chairman of Richmond Shakespeare Society, and you are here in the Mary Wallace Theatre, which is the Society's home in Twickenham. I think local theatres provide a very different and very special experience because, primarily because they are local. You come along, you will see people you know, you may see people you recognise from the street. There are other theatres, obviously, in Twickenham and in Richmond, and of course in London. The difference, I think, is cost. The West End is really almost prohibitive. Local productions can deliver just as high quality in terms of the production performances, not quite the same level of quality of special effects, obviously. One is limited by what one can do in a smaller theatre, but you get an extremely good value evening out for under £100 for a family of 4, as opposed to several £100s in the West End. I've been going to the theatre since I was about 5, and it's always been something that I just did. I didn't have to think about it. It would be, you know, wrong to single out some productions, particular theatres or groups, but I do think some theatres are focusing too much on appealing to coach parties and tourists and not recognising that if you want people to be going to the theatre in 20 years, you need to be getting them when they're young.
Clearly things are really difficult for local theatres at the moment, but it's obvious they're not just offering entertainment. They're creating a space for the community to come together in these difficult times.
Thank you, Amy. That was a really interesting video.
Thank you.
Just to start off, could you firstly go into some more detail about the West End's high ticket prices and why they're so expensive?
Yeah, definitely. So I know firsthand how expensive the West End can be. Even if you go during the week when they're meant to be a bit more affordable, they're still not the most accessible tickets to get. So if you've got any first-hand experience of that, then definitely get in touch with our socials. But the Stages 2025 West End ticketing survey found that the average cheapest ticket for a London show has increased by 24% from 2024. So in 2024 it was £24.58, and now it's just over £30. And the same goes for the most expensive ticket, which has again increased by 5.2% to over £160, which is just a crazy amount to be spending on a ticket.
Yeah, definitely.
So obviously the West End is going to be more expensive because they have access to professional wardrobe, hair and makeup teams, and can use certain effects that just aren't possible for smaller theatres to use. However, I actually talked to Nigel about this, and he said that he really doesn't like the term Amdram because it seems to be quite derogatory and dismissive of the work that they do there. He's really proud of their rigorous audition process. And I think when you look at what the difference is between West End shows and local theatre, it's really not that big of a difference. The ticket price is the biggest difference. And I think that's why it's so important that we obviously can accept that the West End's going to be more expensive because obviously it's a tourist attraction, but I think it's important that local theatres are filling this gap between art and affordability.
Yeah, definitely. I was just about to mention, I think the attraction to kind of the idea of the West End is what makes it so much more expensive compared to local. I think people just think, oh, the West End, more fancy, so I'll go over there compared. But I just want to ask, how has the wider cost of living crisis kind of affected local theatres?
Yeah, it's definitely affecting local theatres in a detrimental way. So they were struggling before the pandemic, and then obviously COVID-19 came along, they all had to shut their doors, and it seems to have been a constant struggle since then. So they've had to become a lot more cost effective in terms of the sets, the props, and the costumes that they use. I was talking to Nigel about this, and he said that he's really happy about their big army of volunteers who help to mend the costumes and things like that, which obviously is very cost effective. And in the past, they maybe would have ordered a new set in for a production. Now they're having to think about how to utilise the sets that they already have. A report from the Society of London Theatre and UK Theatre found that the cost of running in creative theatre has soared dramatically, and it's rising faster than inflation. So it's not just anecdotal, but it's fact that things are just becoming so difficult. Also, theatres are based in older buildings, so obviously inevitable building work will need to be done, and they can't utilise volunteers for that. So they do have to pay for that, and that's very expensive. And finally, they are struggling with audience numbers. I think people are really feeling the pinch of the cost of living crisis, and that means that they can't go out and support their local theatres in the way that they seem to do in the past, as culture spending tends to be the first to go from people's budgets. So it's understandable, but it's difficult for theatres.
Yeah, I think it's quite sad that they're facing such difficulties, but I think there's a slight shining light in terms of I guess, props and costumes. The fact that they kind of have to reuse them allows them to be, I guess, more creative. And in a way, it kind of keeps them and helps them to be slightly more sustainable, I guess. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of a bit of a silver lining.
Yeah.
But could you talk about some of the more specific challenges that these local theatres have faced?
Yeah, so it is really difficult. The main principles of local theatre is affordable tickets and accessible productions, and the cost of living crisis has meant that they've really had to rely on their volunteers and ticket sales. So I spoke to Sue about this, and she said, quite shockingly, that the sales from one production go on to support the next. So it's not really sustainable. It's not like they're making a profit. It's not the most sustainable. And it's also not like they can just increase their ticket prices like other shows maybe have done, because obviously they'll be pricing out their audience and then they'll have no audience at all. So Teddington Theatre Club has around 900 members. So it's not a lot when you think about how far they've got to stretch membership monies, because a lot of local theatres do run membership schemes, and they are feeling quite stuck and limited in terms of what they can do with that membership price, because they've almost hit this price ceiling where if they keep increasing it, they'll have no members, no audience, and then obviously no production. So it is really difficult at the minute, yeah.
Yeah, you just mentioned membership schemes, and in terms of theatres, could you just go into a bit more detail about kind of how that works and how much they cost?
Yeah, definitely. So out of the theatres I spoke to, all use pretty similar membership models, which is either a full membership or an audience membership. So a full membership is you can take part in a production either on stage or backstage, whereas an audience membership gives you access to member prices. So Teddington Theatre Club in Hampton Hill Theatre charges £50 for a full membership and £25 for an audience one. The Mary Wallace Theatre charges £35 for a full membership, and then audience membership costs £10. And finally, Network Theatre charges £10 a year, And then if you want to take part in a show, you pay a £40 participation fee. So obviously you need a lot of people to put on a production. So Network Theatre has around 250 members. So not a huge amount again in terms of how many people you need to put on a production. So Sue told me that as a minimum, you would need a director, assistant director, producer, stage manager, sound and lighting, set designers, front of house and bar operators, and that's not even including the cast. So it is a real big undertaking to put on a production like this. And when you compare these membership schemes to the gym, or how much we spend on Netflix, which works out at around over £150 a year, or how much we on average spend on coffee in a year, it really isn't much in the grand scheme of things. And obviously you get to take part in productions for that, you get to see a wide variety of live theatre. I spoke to Nigel and he said that community theatres, you can actually see a wider variety of performances because they can take more risks. They're not as hung up about things being a commercial success. So for that price, you get to see such a wide variety of productions and obviously get involved in your local community.
Yeah, definitely. I think when you first look at the prices, you're like, whoa, like it kind of seems like a lot. But now that you kind of spoke about what you get with these memberships, it's definitely worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that there's a misconception surrounding the benefits of local theatre?
Mm-hmm. I definitely think that the benefits are overlooked, and I think that's shown in how we support the arts. So the UK is one of the lowest levels of government spending on culture in Europe. So the UK was one of only a few countries to actually reduce its culture spending from 2010 to 2022. So the UK's cut its total culture budget by 6% since 2010. And that doesn't sound like a crazy amount, but when you compare it to the likes of Finland, France, and Germany, who have all increased their spending by 70%, I think it just shows how we don't really support them. A spokesperson from the Department for Culture, Media and Sport told me that they are under no illusions about the financial issues facing the culture sector and are committed to supporting them during this difficult time. Another example of funding cuts in London is that in 2022, the government instructed Arts Council England to make £56 million worth of arts funding cuts between 2023 and 2026. London still just received a third of funding nationally, but it's nowhere near the levels that it once was. So a spokesperson from Arts Council England told me that theatre is operating in a challenging environment where rising costs is increasing the demand for investment and is causing organisations to make difficult decisions. Obviously, the benefits of theatre are also never really spoken about on the economy, but they are significant. So for every £1 that you spend on a theatre ticket, £1.40 is generated in local economies, which is quite an interesting statistic. And obviously, I think that just goes to show that local theatres aren't just great for the community, but they're also really important to the local and national economy.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting. I didn't know that, but I think that just shows the UK kind of need to figure out where they're putting their funding, to be honest. Yeah, but just coming to you personally, why do you think that local theatres are so important to support?
I mean, after visiting local theatres, I think it's difficult to come away feeling like you don't want to support them. I feel like they're really important. I actually asked Harry about the benefits of local theatre, and this is what he had to say.
Theatre, I think, is not just good for the soul, it's good for the mind, good for your mental health, and good because it brings you into contact with people that you might not otherwise come into contact with, people from different communities, different ages, different genders, different parts of the borough or beyond. And if you've got technical skills, like you know how to operate a lighting desk or a sound desk, you are just as important to the success of a production as the individual actors on stage are. If you're an actor on stage, well, you get to be somebody else for a period of rehearsals and then for production.
So as Harry mentioned, local theatres dramatically improve your mental health. So the Old Vic actually did an audience survey, and 93% of the respondents either agreed or strongly agreed that theatre improves their mental health and well-being. So obviously coming out of the pandemic, where we saw that 25% increase in rates of anxiety and depression, I think it's no wonder that people are really craving these community connections. I think everybody would agree that it's important that access to the arts is kept affordable, and it's only going to stay that way if we support them now.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for that. You've actually inspired me to go visit my local theatre.
Great, yes.
Thank you. Next up, our reporter Halima has been speaking to 2 different first aid charities.
I'm here to speak with St John Ambulance to hear what they need to say about first aid training. Only 1 in 4 people know how to carry out first aid. But the question is, do you know how to carry out first aid?
My name's David Birchall.
Clive James. I joined St John as a 9-year-old, as a cadet, and been with them ever since. I've had various roles. I also work for them full time. I've done in a number of roles. I was a full-time trainer for them, delivering courses to the public. I now work on the health and safety side.
I joined St John when I was 16. My parents said, I ought to do something. They were in St John at the time, so I said, well, I may as well join St John, and so I did, and I've been as a volunteer ever since, which was some 62 years ago.
The charity itself is over 900 years old. Started off at the time of the Crusades many years ago, and the Knights of St John in those days built hospitals en route for the Crusaders, and then built hospitals wherever they went, and they become known as the Hospitallers. But as I say, we've started up again in the UK back in Victorian times, when lots of people were dying in the factories and mines and everywhere else, and there was an identified need for first aid, and that's the St John Ambulance as you see it today. Defibrillators are very, very simple to use because they talk to you.
Apply pads to patient's bare chest. Plug in pads connector next to flashing light.
The pads show you where they need to go.
Apply pads. Plug in connector.
And then the machine will take over.
Analyzing heart rhythm. Do not touch the patient. Shock advised. Charging. Stay clear of patient. Deliver shock
Right,
now.
stand clear, everybody.
Orange button shock delivered. Pause. If needed, start CPR.
Defibrillators and bleed kits exist as first aid equipments. Some of them are not used because some people don't know how to use it, and some places don't actually have bleed kits or defibrillators due to the funding of the council. How do you feel about that?
The government are doing what they can. The government invested a lot of money some years ago in putting defibrillators in public places. Defibrillators are one of the big things in first aid in recent years. Years ago, defibrillators could only be used by doctors. Now they can be used by members of the public without any training. The government have got no money to invest hugely into first aid, and that's where organisations like ourselves and others that have a similar ethos as well are there trying to provide that first aid training. It's understandable. If you don't know what you're dealing with, especially if someone is, very, very unwell, you are going to panic, and especially as a lot of these people will come across these people in their own homes because they live with people when they become unwell. So not only are you panicking because you don't know what to do, but you're panicking because it's your loved one. And if you're out in the street, then you're panicking because you're out in the street as well. It's one of those things that first aid is very, very, very simple because it's common sense. But a lot of people just need to get that confidence to be able to do it, and that's why we feel first aid training is really important. We want everybody to be first aid trained.
I'm here in Balham to speak to First Aid for Life to hear what they need to say about first aid training.
My name is Emma Hammett. I set up First Aid for Life back in 2007, so we've been going a long time. I have also written onlinefirstaid.com, so we have 56 online courses that people can access from all over the world, which is quite exciting. So we've got practical first aid courses with First Aid for Life, and then we can use the online side of things to have blended learning, which is a great way to train, and also purely online for those people that don't need a regulated qualification. Defibrillator alongside CPR. So when you are giving CPR, when you're pushing on the chest, you're being the heart for the person. When you're breathing into them, you're being the lungs for them. So you're being a heart and lung machine. If you have a cardiac arrest in the community, your chances of survival are only about 6%. And that's with someone doing quality CPR on you. If you can get a defibrillator on the chest within 3 minutes of someone being unconscious and not breathing, and in a shockable rhythm, your odds jump from 6% to 74%. If you apply direct pressure, you're not able to stop the blood coming out. Twist it as tight as you can. There you go.
And Maliyah joins us now in the studio. Thank you so much for that, Halima. That was such an interesting watch. I feel like I've learned a lot from that video, even though it was short. So I firstly just wondered, what is St John's Ambulance and kind of the history behind it?
So the name St John originates from the period of the 11th century, so during the Crusades in Jerusalem. Clive James from St John Ambulance actually touches on this when he speaks about the history of it, and basically the Knights Hospitallers were like the caregivers to pilgrims. That's where the name usually originates from. And also in the Victorian era, St John was pretty big because there was a need for first aid and sort of, so there was a need for first aid.
So interesting to hear about the history.
Yeah, definitely. I just want to ask those that don't know, what is the process of CPR training?
So the process of CPR training, it requires a lot of concentration because you're potentially saving a life, and it requires a lot of steps. But I will just get into like what I gathered. So the setting has to be safe, and you have to tap the shoulder of the person who is in a cardiac arrest, and you have to shout for help and call the ambulance. And also you have to go under the chin with your fingers and on the forehead, and you need to check for their breathing, which is like 10 minutes, a 10-minute check. And then if possible, or if there is a use of a defibrillator around, you should use it. And a defibrillator actually explains to you how to carry out CPR and even instructs you on when you should finish doing it. But roughly, when it comes to CPR, you need to do 30 compressions, and those 30 compressions, then you have to tilt the head and then check for like a mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, and then you should return to chest compressions. So it requires a lot of steps and a lot of attention that you need in order to carry it.
It's good that then you have kind of those defibrillators that are now on the streets of London to kind of help us around doing that then. And I saw the one of the machines on your video were actually speaking, which was actually insane. But it was also like nice to know that you kind of have that guidance, especially for someone that's not versed in first aid at all.
Yeah, I feel like you're more likely to use it if you know that it's going to kind of talk you through what to do. And your video also mentioned bleed kit bags. So I just wondered, how would someone who hasn't come across one use it, and what's actually included in a bleed kit bag?
So a bleed kit bag is pretty relatively new, and it's usually heard when someone either gets knife crime and also intense like catastrophic bleeding is used. You have to act fast because someone can lose their life due to excessive bleeding. And when I spoke to Emma at First Aid for Life, she talked me through the different types of wounds, and she also mentioned toxins in the blood, which kind of scared me at the time when she told me that. But in terms of a bleed kit, the main key things that are required in the bag is a tourniquet and a type of dressing and a large trauma dressing, and gloves obviously because we want to stay safe and not cause any more infections. In a bleed kit, it's quite similar to a defibrillator because they have instructions and walk you through how to basically carry out different methods of first aid training.
Yeah, it's good that we kind of now have it's good that we now have bleed kits, even though it's quite sad that we need them, but it's good to have them. But do you mind just walking us through the significance of a tourniquet?
So a tourniquet, basically, it was used in like war settings. So it's a sort of strap that you attach to a area where there's a large bleeding, to stop the blood flow. And you have to turn it tightly. In the video, Emma explains to me how to tightly turn around the tourniquet, but also there's different methods of the tourniquet. You can also use like even a bandage and just like tighten it. As long as it's tight, that's the main thing, so it can stop the blood flow. And you can find more information on the First Aid for Life website, where they speak about bleed kits and how the significance surrounding a tourniquet.
And another quite scary statistic was that the St John's ambulance found that almost 3 in 10 employees have experienced times when no one present in their workplace was first aid trained. That's such a crazy statistic. So can you just tell me why was that?
It's because when you're in the workplace, there's less need for like first aid, because usually some of the injuries are very small that happen. Usually it's either a cut or maybe someone choking out. But in terms of the fact that a lot of people that work in the workplace don't actually have accessibilities due to the cost of a lot of first aid training, or they never have the time or flexibility to do first aid training. I found out on Siren Training, which is a first aid company, and they have multiple locations in London. They provide a 1-day emergency first aid training, which is really like going to be beneficial for people that are working and they want to know how to do first aid. Also, in a CV, they would ask you if you're first aid trained. So, yeah.
But I personally think workplaces have that kind of responsibility to make sure at least a few of their like employees are first aid trained, even if they're the ones that have to put that funding in, because not having anyone that's first aid trained is really like dangerous, to be honest, because you don't know how far they are from the nearest hospital, or especially ambulances nowadays, they don't come as quickly as you might have expected them to come maybe 10 years ago. So I think having that would be quite important, no?
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, thank you for that, Halima. That was really informative. And keeping on the health beat, Halima's got some of today's top health stories.
So the cost of living crisis isn't just impacting people's wallets, but also their health. Could you just explain a bit more about this story for us, Halima?
So in The Guardian, they reported that abortions are at a record high in England due to the cost of living. And this is the highest rate since the Abortion Act was introduced in 1976. And the percentage increase was about 11%, which is really much higher than last year's previous year. And what's kind of upsetting is that health providers have stated that the cost of living is forcing mothers to make financial decisions about their pregnancy and terminating it. And there's literally a poor access to getting a contraception through the GP or the sexual health clinic. Sometimes some people may be feeling a bit awkward going there, or it's just expensive in general.
Yeah, I see why that there has kind of been a rise in abortions and a rise in like contraception, because I think in a way it's kind of good because people aren't wanting to bring their child into a situation that they themselves cannot afford. Like, if you can't afford to feed yourself, how are you going to afford to clothe a baby? And I remember someone telling me that it costs, when you have a newborn, it costs around £10,000 in their first year, because you have a growing baby, so you have to keep buying clothes, different formulas, and nappies and things like that. So it's very expensive. So I understand why that's happening. And then you also think of like contraception and how it's not always free. Like, last time I checked, I think a Plan B is around £30 on average. And I know that the government was saying that they wanted to make all morning after pills free, but I'm not sure how they're getting on with that. But what do you guys think?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think it's really good that women can make informed decisions about their finances and also their health, and obviously they're making the right decision for them. So I think obviously it's a sad statistic, but important for them.
Yeah. In other news, we've all seen images of people receiving hospital treatment in the corridors. Could you please tell us more about the study that's been released?
So I remember I've came across a lot of TikTok videos where they are complaining about hospitals in East London specifically, about their long waiting hours, to the point that patients are being treated in corridors in unhygienic settings. So the Royal College of Nursing published testimonies about how unsafe it became to treat people in corridors. And also the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, acknowledged this, and he apparently pledged to end this practice before the end of Parliament, while beginning to publish more data on it.
And speaking of the NHS, there's also been soaring demand for people wanting ADHD assessments, but now the NHS is now wanting to limit that. So could you just tell us a bit more?
As we know, a lot of people are struggling to get any sort of form of assessments for autism or any neurological disorder. ADHD assessments are pretty much a lot worse, because now NHS are saying that they are going to probably add new restrictions to it. So the average wait to get an ADHD assessment is 8 years, and with this restriction, it will increase it to be more longer of a wait. And also the NHS actually spoke about spending over a budget of £174 million on ADHD assessments, and more than half of England's 42 NHS integrated care boards have imposed the caps on ADHD assessments for this year and last year.
I think that waiting list is absolutely, to be honest, diabolical, because you have so many, it's not just adults, it's children as well that kind of need that in order to get that kind of support, whether that's in school or at home. Because sometimes diagnosis can mean a lot to people, but at the same time, I also understand why there's such a long waiting list, because diagnosing conditions such as autism and ADHD can take a long time, because it's such a wide spectrum and you don't know what kind of, what part of the spectrum a certain individual may be on, and it takes quite extensive, testing to kind of see how to put someone on there. So I understand why it's so I understand why it takes so long, but I definitely think we should probably work on getting more resources and figuring out how to get tested faster and kind of get these assessments going faster and shortening that line at least by half. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I feel like I know quite a few people who have actually chosen to go private, which I think is quite popular at the minute, because obviously to wait that long, like you mentioned, you do want a diagnosis.
Yeah.
So to be on that waiting list for so long, it's not really fair on the individual. So yeah.
I feel like a lot of private companies are even offering assessments for even cheaper than regular other places.
Really?
But usually some people get it easy because they advocate through GPs, and the GP advocates for them, and then it probably cuts down to maybe 2 years or 3 years, which is a lot easier.
I also think I've seen people having to go through their local MP, especially when it comes to their children, or especially when it comes to children in school, because they might be facing, I'm not saying mistreatment, but they might be treated like other students when unfortunately they don't need that kind of treatment. They need different treatment because of them having autism or ADHD, and they need that kind of special assistance. So people have to actually take it quite high up just in order to get put higher on the list, if that makes sense. Yeah.
It's a really interesting topic. So thank you so much for your time, Halima, for joining us on the sofa. But don't go anywhere, as Chris is in southwest London with the exciting story of weightlifters who have won gold.
In Congress World Championships saw teams from every corner of the globe converge on Durban, South Africa. Amongst these global athletes stood the competitors of Brentford Barbell Club, a small powerlifting group based here in southwest London. Despite their humble origins, they managed to take home 4 gold medals between their 3 athletes, a remarkable achievement. So I'm on my way to the gym where they train to find out about their journey to becoming world champions. Figures published by Powerlifting Data show a significant increase in the number of people taking up powerlifting over the last 10 years. I wanted to find out what's driving this trend and how the sport is increasing its appeal. Brentford Barbell Club was founded by its coach, Ali Hassanzadeh, so I went to meet him at Chosen Gym in Hounslow, where his team trains. Despite being open for only 1 year, the facilities certainly looked up to the task.
So my name is Ali Hassanzadeh. I'm a 2-time world champion, military world record holder, founder of British MMA and Brentford Barbell Club, and I coach all people from all over the world.
So how did you get into powerlifting?
So I started in just after the first lockdown. I was in the States at the time, and I had invested in a martial arts center, and that went to crap, unfortunately, because of the lockdown. When I came back, what happened was, obviously, was demotivated, and mental health was at the low. And a few friends of mine that we were training together said to me, "Why don't you give powerlifting competition a try?" And for me, coming from a combat sports background where people are trying to take off your head, and coming into a sport where people are trying to help you and be your teammate, and my own competitors were giving me hints and tips, and it was from that first competition I just fell in love and never looked back.
What kind of challenges have you faced getting involved in it?
I would say as a coach, what I found challenging is that the amount of care that you put into your athletes, and a lot of them don't know how far they can go. And with that, obviously, there comes a lot of passion, a lot of drive, and a lot of discipline.
Can you explain powerlifting for someone who's not familiar with the sport?
It consists of the 3 lifts: squat, bench, and deadlift. Now, if you are going for a competition, for example, you would assign yourself for a coach or someone that has experienced powerlifting competitions in a certain federation.
And how did it feel seeing the 2 that you had coached come back with 3 gold medals between them?
You've got Tanya Khan, which is 21 years old, and you've got Jason Riley at 53. 2 different walks of life, coming from 2 different backgrounds, coming into an international sanctioned competition, and to compete for the first time ever for them as a world champion, coming back and achieving that, and that being in the London Borough of Hounslow. So that's something I'm definitely proud of. It may seem small, but my biggest question to a lot of people is, how many world champions do you have in your family?
And speaking of world champions, let's introduce you to another one. Although Jason's path to powerlifting was very different than that of his coach.
Yeah, my name's Jason Riley, I'm 55 and I'm a powerlifter.
Fantastic. A successful powerlifter.
That's right, yeah. I won the gold medal out in South Africa recently in the 55 Masters category.
So Jason, could you tell me about your journey into powerlifting?
Right, I've been doing it for 2 years, and basically I was a professional ice hockey player for the best part of 17 years till I was about 35. And then I retired from that because it was obviously took its toll on my body. And then I spent about another 15 years just not really doing anything, not too much exercise, just generally wasting away a little bit. And when my kids got older, I decided I probably needed to get fit again, just to find something. So I got on the internet, as you do, and I found Ali and the Brentford Barbell Club.
Throughout your ice hockey career, you had a number of injuries. Can you talk us through some of those?
Cracked collarbone, dislocated collarbone, torn meniscus, a lot of facial cuts, stuff like that. Broken ankles, noses. I don't know. Where do you want me to stop?
Do you think your injuries helped you become more resilient when you got into powerlifting?
It's quite difficult really to go into any other sport after I finished playing that, because physically you're kind of a little bit not in great shape. So, but with powerlifting, I find it's been able to build my body up again through the strength. It's quite a slow process, and you lift heavy, but it's in a very controlled and slow way, and I think it's really good for older people, to be honest, of all ages.
What would you say to someone like you, who is a total novice but is wanting to get into powerlifting?
It's kept me strong for my work and physically as well. I'm probably stronger now than I was when I was playing. I've got to be honest. Powerlifting just stimulates me. It's something that's a battle against yourself, really. So you're kind of, although there are other people in the competition, whatever, you're also battling yourself, and it takes courage.
A quality that Tanya, the group's youngest and newest athlete, possesses in abundance.
My name is Tanya Khan. I'm 21 years old, and I would say I'm still a beginner powerlifter, even though I've only been competing for a year.
So Tanya, how did you get involved in powerlifting?
It's really funny, actually. So I used to work as a PT inside of a gym. And to be fair, I used to see like Coach Ali coming in my gym when I was working there. He asked me for like some of my details, and I gave it to him. I'm like, okay, that's fine. And he just signed me up. I didn't even know I was getting myself into this. He just signed me up. He's like, okay, here's your new split. Here's your membership. You're going to compete. And I'm like, whoa, I'm not big enough. I'm like looking at myself. I'm like, I'm skinny. I'm like not even strong enough.
So was Ali signing you up without your knowledge, the push that you needed to take that step?
Definitely. Again, like powerlifting is a very intimidating sport. Like when you see the people that compete, you see big, really, really strong men or women, like screaming, loud noises, music. Like there's a lot of rage in that sport that you would think.
How did it feel when you actually arrived in South Africa for the competition?
So I entered into 2 categories at the same time and managed to come first in both of them. But it's funny because after my comp, after I hit all those numbers, I couldn't walk for the next 2 days. I literally couldn't walk. Icing it, walking around with tape. Ali and Jason had to help me like get around everywhere because I kept like, guys, I can't walk, and I'm holding on to them. But yeah, it was fun, worth it, definitely worth it.
Would you do it again?
Yeah, 100%.
I left Chosen Gym inspired. These 3 had taken on highly experienced athletes in an international competition. Against all odds, they came back to London world champions. Christopher Chalmers for Londoners News, Hounslow.
Well, hi Chris.
Hi there.
First of all, that gym looks impressive. Could you just tell us a little bit about the setup?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's Chosen Gym in Hounslow. And yeah, I was quite impressed when I turned up there. It's only actually been open since January of last year, so basically been open for a year. But yeah, it used to be in Anytime Fitness, and it closed down, and so there was kind of a gap in the market for like a local 24-hour gym. So it's taken on by an independent operator, and they just totally redid it all. So new kit, pretty cool lighting, as you might have seen. Even got like posing rooms and sort of quite cool stuff for weightlifters. So a bit more specialised as opposed to, the more kind of pure gym type ones. But yeah, I mean, I was very impressed, certainly.
Yeah, definitely. It's nice how it's kind of specialised for powerlifting. How does powerlifting actually work then?
Yeah, so it was kind of new to me. I hadn't any knowledge about it beforehand, but basically during a competition, the athletes get 3 attempts to pull the heaviest weight that they can. So it's like you're going against yourself, basically, like, can I lift more? And it's across 3 different types of lifts. So they do squat, bench press, and deadlift, and they get 3 goes at each one. So basically, you just have to lift the heaviest weight that you can manage without picking up an injury. But yeah, they're known as the big 3 in that community, and yeah, some people lift an insane amount.
Wow, sounds painful. Tell me more about Jason and his road to recovery.
Yeah, I really like Jason, actually. He was quite an inspiring character. As you'll have heard in the film, he had been a professional ice hockey player for, I think it was about 18 years. And that's a sport that isn't really famed for its sort of gentleness. Like, you pick up a lot of injuries in that. He listed off a few, but I think he had 12 or 14 separate injuries from that time. And when he retired in his mid-30s, his kids were growing up, he kind of felt that, that his physical best was behind him, and he thought he'd just become a sort of couch potato. And then when he was like 52, he just thought, I'm going to get fit, picked it up, and within 2 years, he won a gold medal at an international competition. So yeah, quite an inspiring guy.
That is quite inspiring. Yeah, wow, what an interesting story, Chris. Also, from the gym footage, it looks like the gym was really busy. So is the sport increasing in popularity?
Yeah, I was surprised to learn about that too, because it seems like quite a niche sport, but actually powerlifting data a website, they actually published some stats about how it's growing, and it's growing in almost every age group apart from people aged of 10 to 15, and arguably it's probably a bit young to start at that age. And every other age group, it's actually growing in popularity, and between 21 and 25-year-olds, 9% every year from 2013 to 23. So yeah, it's definitely, there's a lot of social media promotion, I think, now with certain sports, and this one's definitely getting some traction. But yeah, definitely used to be on the fringe. I feel like it's going a bit more kind of mainstream, and yeah, a lot more people are getting involved.
Yeah, I've definitely seen some videos of people powerlifting online. I just think it looks quite scary though.
Yeah.
But after doing this video, has it kind of inspired you to get more fit, I guess?
I think it has, to be honest. Yeah, I might have had a few too many roast dinners over Christmas. I could do with losing a few pounds, maybe putting on a bit of muscle rather than weight. So yes, I think I do need to start getting fit. Whether it's powerlifting, yet to be seen.
Wait and see.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Chris, but don't go anywhere just yet because you've got some of today's news for us.
Well, there's been a lot of news surrounding our political parties recently. Do you care to tell us more?
Yeah, absolutely. Yesterday, a bit of a roller coaster. So the biggest news was the shock defection of Robert Jenrick, former Shadow Justice Minister in the Tory party, the Conservatives, moving over to Reform UK. Yeah, that was quite a shock. He actually was sacked from the Conservative Party around about 11 a.m. Because the leader, Kemi Badenoch, was handed information showing a planned resignation speech. So rather than let him resign, he was sacked, and quite hurriedly, it seems, went over to Reform and gave a speech at 4:30, announcing his intentions. Unlike with a lot of other Tory defectors recently, like Nadeem Zahawi and Danny Kruger, Jenrick really got the sledgehammer out against his former colleagues. He was not at all kind to them, and was pretty scathing about Kemi Badenoch as well as leader. He's on the right of the party. Without him, arguably, yeah, it's more kind of liberal. Kemi Badenoch takes a hard line, but he is definitely one of the further right figures. But yeah, we have a clip of what he actually had to say during that press conference.
Great. Maybe while we wait for that, so would you like to discuss what Nigel Farage's response was?
Yes, he introduced Jenrick's shock announcement that he was coming over to the party. He called it, I think, the latest...
To argue other than that Britain is completely broken. Those that came before us built a great country, the greatest country in the world. But we are set to lose it. We will, for certain, if this government gets re-elected. A suicidal energy policy, crushing workers to fund scroungers on benefits, unions running our public services, payouts to terrorists, prosecutions of veterans, the bravest of the brave, 900,000 migrants in their first year.
Yeah, so as we were saying, Farage described it, the leader of Reform, Nigel Farage, described it as the latest Christmas gift he's ever been given.
Wow.
He maintained that Jenrick wasn't about to come over. Some debate about that, I think. But yeah, I think certainly his sacking took a bit of the thunder out. If he'd actually been allowed to resign and go over on his own terms, then it might have been a bit more of a shock, but it's still pretty devastating to the Tories. And, Farage maintains there'll be a lot more defections. Apparently, high-profile Labour defection next week, so we'll have to keep our ears peeled for that one.
Yeah, let's wait and see.
I feel like Parliament recently has just been a bit of a scandalous affair, to be honest. I feel like I'm watching a TV show. What do you guys think?
Yeah, it's almost like bordering on entertainment.
Yeah. I mean, there's always a bit of backstabbing going on around Westminster, but I think, Keir Starmer's probably quite chuffed to not be the political news at the moment, and it's infighting between the right-wing parties. So, yeah, definitely an interesting one.
Yeah, interesting story. So, Chris, Donald Trump has been given a Nobel Peace Prize medal. you just go into a bit of background for this,
Yes,
this story for us?
Trump didn't get it in the normal way, as most people are given the Nobel Peace Prize. He was actually given his by the Venezuelan opposition leader, Maria Corina Machado. She presented the medal to the US president as a gesture of gratitude, she said, basically as a thanks for ousting the dictator Nicolas Maduro. She said that she did this in recognition of his unique commitment to Venezuelans' freedom. She's actually the liberal leader of the opposition, and hasn't actually got support of Trump up until now. Trump's actually been voicing his support for the vice president, who was the vice president when Nicolas Maduro was still in charge, and clearly wasn't a fan of her, perhaps because she's a bit left-wing for him. She is supposedly the person who won the election in 2024, but it was stolen by the corruption of Maduro's party. So, yeah, a little bit of a pity. She's having to sort of grovel and give him the Nobel Peace Prize that he so wants in order to try and curry favour. But yeah, Trump's not been shy about saying that he wants to be awarded a Nobel Peace Prize. He's actually on record saying that no one deserves a Nobel Peace Prize more than me. And yes, on the London angle, Mayor Sadiq Khan chimed in on this and actually questioned whether the award really counts, given that it was given to him by someone else who won the award and not him.
Yeah, I agree with him. I have to agree with that as well.
Mhm.
You don't deserve it if you're just giving it away.
No,
So,
no, it's pretty much a bought one, really.
I feel quite sad for Machado though, because it's like you kind of want a spot that you rightfully deserve, but instead you now have to bribe someone who's not necessarily even involved in your political affairs, but you have to bribe them in order to kind of get what you want. You give someone what they wanted so bad, but are they going to give you the same thing? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
But speaking of Sadiq Khan, the London mayor, have you got any London centred news for us?
I do actually, yes. Just this morning, a chap was at Westminster Magistrates Court, charged with 112 separate fare dodging offences, worth more than £18,000. Some parts of the press are labelling him as Britain's biggest fare dodger. He did plead guilty, Charles Brohuri, 29. But yes, he had been using the Thameslink service and the Great Northern and Southern trains, and over a period of about 2 years, has managed to evade something like £18,000 worth of fares, which is quite extraordinary, really.
very impressive.
Yeah. But no, I find that quite interesting. Yeah, there have been cases of bigger amounts being dodged. I think a few years ago there was supposedly a banker who had evaded something like £40,000 worth, but he was offered the deal that if he pays it back, that he can keep his anonymity, so we never found out who he was. But yeah, this guy, named and shamed.
Wow. Well, thanks for that, Chris. And moving on, there's been some new data released by the ONS regarding revenge porn, hasn't there?
Yes, not as cheery a story, I'm afraid. This was at South West Londoner's Charlotte Lang, who reported that revenge porn is responsible for the annual spike in sexual offences. This year it was 11% surge in sexual offences, primarily due to image-based abuse and cyber flashing, according to figures, as you say, by the ONS. Yeah, not a very nice story. The police recorded over 13,000 cases of revenge porn and digital sexual abuse since 2024. That's probably far less than actually goes on, because I'm sure a lot of it goes unreported. It's not the kind of thing that people want to come forward about, potentially being blackmailed. But yeah, not very nice. Cyber flashing and revenge porn is actually a criminal offence now, and was criminalised in 2023 with the Online Safety Act.
I mean, I hope those numbers, like the spike, is coming from people actually noticing cases and not cases rising, because I don't know about you guys, but I feel like revenge porn, at some point it was quite normalized, especially with like young people and on social media, because it's like, I don't know why, but people just seems to find it funny when it was really like, it's really dangerous, and it's quite, I don't know, I can't even explain it. It's just something that we shouldn't see and we shouldn't normalize at all.
I think it's good that this data exists, though. I think a few years ago I wouldn't have even known what revenge porn was, and obviously the work from Georgia Harrison, who was on Love Island a few years ago, she's obviously a big campaigner for this issue, and I think she's definitely raised a lot of awareness, like for me personally, but also just younger people in general. It's obviously a really big issue.
No, it is a really serious matter, and Also, I suppose it's with a lot of young kids, more on social media, and just sadly get trapped in this kind of thing. And it is quite relevant at the moment because it comes amid the criticism of Grok AI, the X or Twitter AI tool, which has been used to make pornographic and explicit images of people by just grabbing their face and changing the image around it. Apparently, very convincing. So yeah, I mean, you don't even need to get revenge porn now. With a real image, someone will just make one up. Pretty shocking stuff.
Yeah, I just hope this stuff is regulated and very soon, to be honest. Yeah, but thank you for that, Chris.
Thank you very much.
Moving on to a slightly lighter mood, Evie has been investigating the mental health benefits of taking part in pottery and ceramics.
The World Health Organization estimates that over 1 billion people now live with a mental health condition. Therapies are high in demand, but what if doing an arty activity can help with your mental health condition? Say pottery. Can sitting at the potter's wheel really help your mental health?
So my name's Ashley Howard and I'm the Senior Lecturer in Ceramics here at the University for the Creative Arts in Farnham. And I've been involved in ceramics all my life really. I have a great fondness for the idea of pottery because you're talking about pots. And but ceramics, I suppose, is becoming more and more popular because it covers so many different aspects to the ceramic process. Because clay isn't just pots. I think one associates clay work and pottery with the potter's wheel or coil pottery. And so by definition there, you're using the wheel or coils of clay to create a kind of skin of clay that creates a vessel. It's very automatic, it's very, very deeply rooted in our genetics as humans to make containers of one sort or another. But ceramics gives us this huge kind of field to play with and alerts us to so many different possibilities of what clay can do. Creating things with our hands it's a privilege to be involved in, speaking from a personal point of view. But I think it's an important part of being human, leaving behind those tangible traces that we can communicate with our past through and to. Is hugely important. If again, clay is a wonderful material for doing that. Visit any museum, or if you're lucky enough to hold, ancient shards of pottery, where one can identify fingerprints of the maker. It's quite a powerful, it's quite spiritual. It's quite a spiritual experience. And I think it is. It's a key part of the human condition to make. But I do believe that, again, just through this action of working with natural materials and forming ideas and seeing those ideas manifest, through the ends of your fingertips, I think that does have a bearing on mental health for the positive. The creative process in all its forms can be a therapeutic process. The language of materials is exactly that. It's a language, and we rely so much. And I'm sort of paraphrasing and harking back to one of my heroes, a chap called John Dewey, who spoke about this. This idea that we rely so much on the spoken word, to communicate, but that actually painting, sculpture, ceramics, textiles, other activities are also a language, and let us acknowledge these as a way of communicating. And for some people who might find, communicating difficult, they may find a great sense of release in something therapeutic. So much of our lives, is lived through digital platforms and the digital medium, and as a process of just, it's a necessary part. But I think there's a huge desire. I don't think it's very complicated. I think there's a huge desire to just get back to, this contact that I believe, does give a sense of self-worth. You're not just hitting buttons and things just sort of get magicked away. You're actually involved bodily. Let's not forget the body in this as well. We talk about ideas in the mind, but this idea of the body being involved in making in a way that it can't be in the digital world. And that tangibility isn't just the tangibility of my hands touching clay, for example. You know, it's a whole kind of spiritual experience. You know.
I wanted to gain a deeper understanding on the psychological side of art therapies, so I spoke to Parul Basubara, a psychotherapist just outside of London.
Yeah, patients with mental health issues can be really positively impacted by art therapy, in particular pottery. First of all, one tends to go to groups with other people. When one's suffering from mental health illness, it's quite easy to isolate. So just being around other people is very advantageous. Secondly, it can help with many different types of mental health issues. For example, ADHD, it can help people focus because they're focusing on the pottery and not on all the thoughts that are going through their heads. So it can help both from a practical perspective for their mental health, but also from a neuroscience perspective. With ADHD, for example, a lot of people spend a large part of their time in their amygdala, which is their fight, flight or freeze part of the brain. So doing something like pottery helps them connect with their executive functioning, with their prefrontal cortex, and helps them focus and not worry so much.
Having spoken to Parul, I wanted to really understand how one feels when completing these classes. So I spoke to Sarah Bateman, a mum of two from Windsor, who recently went on a pottery course.
The pottery class I went to was in Strodes College, and it was 10 weeks or 12 weeks over sort of a whole term, 2 hours a night, once a week. Each week we learned the basics, starting with pinch pots, slab building, moulds, did one session of throwing. The positive thing from doing the course was it's a total switch off. For 2 hours you forget about everything. It was just lovely, it was so relaxing. We were just chatting amongst people we didn't know. We didn't even realise that one chap had brought his cat with him for the whole of the course that was sat underneath the table. But yeah, highly recommend it for a bit of switch off time. I'm a proud owner of one jug. So we had to learn how to make handles and the spout, and then there was obviously the glazing we learnt as well. So this is the one piece I have kept.
And Evie joins us now in the studio. Thanks so much for joining us. I really loved your video, the little dog that popped up halfway through.
I know, his name was Freud, after Sigmund Freud, which is pretty appropriate as his mum's a psychotherapist.
Yeah, that is. I love the jug that she made at the end as well. That's really inspiring people to make some pottery. Love it. So have you had a go at doing some pottery yourself?
No, I haven't, but I think it looks like so much fun. As a child, I remember I went to a little shop and I painted my own plate, and it had little wobbly red and white apples on it. But I'd really love to make my own thing from clay. I think using the potter's wheel and then like varnishing it yourself is really cool and would be quite satisfying to see it all come to life. But I'm thinking, it's my birthday at the end of the month, so I might treat myself to a class or two. Ashley, who actually spoke at the beginning of my video, does his own private tuition with consultancy and mentorship, so I might be hitting him up for a class or two. What about you guys? Did you ever go at pottery?
I've actually never given it a go before, but I feel like I'm really inspired, especially after seeing the types of things that you can make. I feel like in my head I'm not the most creative and arty person, but yeah, I'm definitely feeling inspired after that. What about you?
Yeah, I think I've only done pottery as a kid. Like I think I've done maybe one class, or I've had those, you know, like when you buy those pots like pre-made and then you paint them. And actually, do you know what? Now that I think about it, I remember my grandma at her house. She had like an actual like toy spinning wheel, like the what are they called, potter's wheel?
Oh yeah.
One of those, but I couldn't use it because I didn't know how. But as an adult, it'd be fun to actually try going on a potter's wheel myself.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's quite mesmerising to watch as well.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it's amazing that pottery has this power to kind of benefit your well-being. Could you tell us some more about this?
Yeah, so pottery naturally promotes mindfulness. It requires complete focus on the present moment. So whether you're centering clay on the pottery wheel or you're building a hand-built vessel, all your mind and energy is put into this.
So negative thoughts from the past or the future simply have to fade away. This meditative quality makes pottery an excellent stress relief activity, and it provides what many describe as an active form of meditation. There is actually a science behind clay pottery. So research produced by 7 Pot Pottery shows that working with clay naturally activates your parasympathetic nervous system, and this helps to reduce cortisol levels, which allows you to relax basically. And this tactile experience engages multiple senses at once, which ultimately creates this grounding effect, which really does minimize these symptoms of anxiety and depression.
Yeah, it's kind of similar to like my story at Pilates. They both have that factor of like well-being. I think that's why you're probably seeing like a rise of pottery and Pilates classes.
Definitely.
And I think that's really interesting actually. But it's nice to see that as like in the capital we're able to kind of get away from that kind of hard working life, you know what I mean?
For sure, and I think it's super important in today.
Definitely.
Yeah. It's also interesting they're so different topics, but they have the same amount of benefits and things like that for your mental health.
Yeah.
I also thought it was really interesting when Ashley mentioned that pottery can be almost a form of escapism from technology, and it brings a sense of self-worth to the individuals.
Yeah, me too. I'd never really thought about it before, but when Ashley was speaking on it made complete sense to me. I don't know about you guys, but I spend a lot of time working on my laptop and my phone, and I probably have hundreds of hours of work all just compressed into documents, and I don't have a lot to show for it. So I think having something physical that you can hold with your hands and you can admire really does give you that sense of pride, and that's perhaps something we are really missing. I also found it super interesting when Ashley spoke about the idea of going back to human basic needs and qualities. From the start of humanity, really, if you think about it, clay is a natural element and it's found in many different places across the world. And it's something that we as humans have used from the start of time, really. We've just had this natural instinct to make things with clay. And I think it's really important to think about this when you're reconnecting. So it kind of reminds me of the idea of walking barefoot on grass. Obviously, grass is a natural element, and you're touching it and you're reconnecting, and you can kind of get a similar thing with clay. And I think that's really, really beneficial to your well-being if you think about it.
And obviously, like the nature of London is quite a stressful environment. So do you think that something like pottery would be able to help with that?
Definitely. It's estimated that 914,000 adults of working age in London are affected by a common mental health disorder, such as anxiety or depression. And I really, because of those stats, it's obvious, therapies are in high demand across the city. And according to the NHS, on the Talking Therapy scheme, 75% of patients should have a first appointment within 6 weeks of referral, and 95% should have an appointment within 18 weeks of referral, which I actually think is a really long time to wait. What do you guys think?
No, I agree. That's
terrible. Yeah. So I think this long wait shouldn't happen. And pottery is something that can kind of help tie you over whilst perhaps you're waiting for that appointment to come through. I think it's important to note that I'm not saying pottery is something that can cure you. It's not going to be the sole thing that makes you feel better. But I think it's a great addition to have alongside professional mental health support.
It's like to have that outlet, I guess. Yeah.
Exactly.
Alongside other lifestyle changes as well. I think it's a good hobby to have.
Yeah.
And speaking of entertainment, Evie's got some of today's top entertainment stories for us.
So Evie, you've got some really good news for the Harry Styles fans out there. Can you tell us a bit more?
Yeah, so yesterday, Harry Styles announced his 4th album. He will be returning to the world of music. This comes after a 1,336-day drought from Harry Styles.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. His new album, which is due to be released on the 6th of March, is going to be called Kiss All the Time, Disco Occasionally, which is a pretty interesting title for an album. It's said that the 12-track album, which is going to be executively produced by his long-term collaborator, Kid Harpoon, will send fans to the sky.
Really? Well, are you guys fans of Harry Styles?
I'm not gonna lie, I'm not the biggest Harry Styles fan. I'm more a fan of early, One Direction, I won't lie. But yeah, that album name is it's a bit strange.
I know.
It is, isn't it?
I think it's very Harry Styles. very disco.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, fans would definitely agree. Pre-orders have already started, and people are buying vinyls, CD editions, and there's even a limited edition film camera. So, yeah, pretty interesting.
And keeping on the theme of music, Evie, you've also got another story for us surrounding the decline of live music venues in London.
Yeah, so our SW London reporter, Danny Weller, has reported on a story surrounding the decline of live music. So venues such as pubs and clubs have been shutting down across London, leaving the live music scene under a real threat. I don't know about you guys, but I think music sounds so much better when you see it live and in person, and grassroots venues are vital for this. Names like the Rolling Stones, U2 and Ed Sheeran all had early success at Half Moon and Putney. More than 40% of the UK's grassroots music venues operated at a loss in 2024, with 125 of them closing their doors. That's a 2 per week rate, which is pretty devastating. And according to music findings in the Music Venue Trust 24 annual report. So I think it's vital that we keep supporting places like the Half Moon in Putney so we can find the next Ed Sheeran. Do you guys go to many live music events?
Yes, I do. In the past few years, I've been to quite a few. It's kind of like becoming a yearly thing for me actually. But last year I went to Seat Splash, which is like a music festival in South London. That was really nice. And hopefully this year I'll be going to see The Weeknd in Wembley actually.
Wow, that's exciting. I love The Weeknd.
Yeah. But sorry, can I just ask as well, you mentioned grassroots like venues. Does that mean like independent venues?
Yeah, pretty much. It's independent venues that are basically all funded by fans, which makes it even more important that we're supporting these sorts of places.
Yeah. Back to live music. Do you listen to live music, Amy?
I don't. It's not really my thing, to be honest. I used to live quite near the prison in Kingston, which is obviously famous for putting on lots of live shows and gigs. And I kind of wish I paid more attention to it. I really wish I attended more.
Took the opportunity when you could have.
Yeah, I know.
But speaking of live entertainment, let's transport ourselves all the way to the West End. It seems extremely busy over the festive period.
Yeah, so new figures have shown that the footfall in London's West End reached its highest level since 2020 over the 2025 festive season. The Heart of London Business Alliance said visitor numbers in December were up by 19% on the same month in 2024 across its central London district. The area, which includes Piccadilly, Leicester Square and Haymarket, also recorded longer visits, with people staying on average 42 minutes longer than in December 2024. The figures shown that a strong recovery from the COVID pandemic and highlighted the growing importance of entertainment economy. I absolutely loved hearing this news. I'm such a fan of going to the theatre, so it was great to hear such happy news on it. Are you guys regular theatre goers?
Yeah, I don't go very often, especially to the West End. I went last year to see The Great Gatsby, and that was so good. I really loved it, and obviously had Alma Davies from Love Island in it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I loved that.
I've only been to the theatre like a few times, mainly as a child. I think I went to watch, one of them was like Michael Jackson, the musical.
Cool, yeah.
It was really good though. And then the most recent one was I was in year 6, and I watched Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. But I remember it so vividly, and I think that's the power of theatre. Like, you can really, it's just, even like if you're sitting super far back, it's very colourful, it's very bright, very vivid, and you can still remember it, even if it's a few years ago. But do you guys have any favourite kind of theatre plays that you like?
Such a tough one. I've seen so many growing up. It kind of used to be something I'd always do with my mum at Christmas. But I did see Mamma Mia the musical, which I'm a big fan. I love a bit of Mamma Mia, and so it was just great to be transported to Greece and dance along with everyone.
But you guys are just kind of making me want to go to the theatre now. Your story now, yours.
Let's book something.
But thank you so much for that, Evie. Next up, we will be speaking with Rashad, who has been visiting a football camp in South London.
I'm here to speak to the founder of Dream the Soccer School about why sessions like this matter.
Dream the Soccer School was founded in 2020. We set it up to run a local
soccer school open to kids of all levels, providing them with high-level coaching for boys and girls from the age of 5 all the way to the age of 13. Jenga derives from the Brazilian style of play. Jenga is all about being expressive on the ball for young people to play with freedom, to play with flair. The way we install this into our young players is coaching them these different skills. We encourage them to take risks. We encourage them to be confident on the ball. But it's all about setting the right environment for them to be confident to try and take risks in the game. It's important for coaches to install that self-belief in the young people, giving them that confidence to take on information, to try these different skills that they've learned, to be able to apply skills that they've learned into a game situation. So coaches do play a very important part. It's also important that children have fun while learning, while developing. I'd say it's probably the most important thing for them to enjoy playing football, enjoy having the ball at their feet. One of the things we really celebrate being in Southwest London, we get kids coming from all different walks of life. It's a very diverse area of all different cultures, all different ethnicities. We run 3 main sessions. So that's a Saturday morning session that we run for children from the age of 5 all the way to the age of 13. We also have a weekly Tuesday session which runs after school, which is term time only. And we run holiday camps throughout the year, every half term, every kind of school holiday, Christmas holiday, Easter, as well as a 4-week camp over the summer holiday. So a general session for us with our young people, we spend quite a lot of time on ball mastery, developing their skills at match tempo so that it's realistic to the game. And we look to build on their skills week by week, session by session. After ball mastery, we'll go into a technical drill. So we do a lot of 1v1s, a lot of 2v2s, a lot of 2v1s, lots of small-sided games to allow them to be able to apply the skills that they've learned from the session into the game. From the age of 5, 6, 7, predominantly we just work on them being confident on the ball in different situations, developing an understanding of when to pass, shoot and dribble. As they get older, as they get to 8, 9, 10, 11, we start to drip feed tactical information into their sessions, so understanding positioning, movement off the ball. We have coaches that have their UEFA A license, we've got coaches that are UEFA B, and we've got coaches that have never coached before and Jenga's their first step into coaching. So we do mentor young coaches, we do develop young coaches from as young as 17, 18. Many of our coaches have been with us for many years, so they've developed while being with us. But yeah, we've got, as just like our kids, our coaches come from a diverse background. Some of our coaches come from a teaching background, some of them come from a strong playing background where they're juggling the playing as well as the coaching. But yeah, we've got a diverse range of experience within our coaching team.
In divided times, grassroots football is a way to bring people from different backgrounds together. With schools closed for half term, holiday camps are in high demand. Today we've discovered the importance of football camps like this across the country. For more on South London, football or anything related, check out Londoners News.
Hi Rashad, thanks for joining. Asking, why do you think camps like this are important during the holidays?
I think they're really important for kids because they're able to be provided with the same structure they have during school. So when it's not term time, they can still wake up early, join their friends instead of being at home sitting all day playing the PlayStation. And I think for parents as well, it's a more affordable alternative to childcare. You know, if you're getting babysitters for your children because you have to go to work, you know, the prices nowadays are crazy, but you can put them instead in this kind of environment where they're with other children, they're still having fun and they're still being looked after. So I think, yeah, it's really necessary.
Yeah, it's also good to like give them something to do because it's just better than like staying in and being on, like you said, the PlayStation and stuff like that.
It is also another form of education, I guess, in a sense.
Yeah.
And I'm also curious to know, what do the children gain from environments like this?
I think there's so much to gain for. I think there's football skills. I think there's personality, leadership skills. I think there's friendships to be gained. And I think just being in an environment where you're with your peers, but not necessarily maybe in a classroom where you're having to learn maths and science, and obviously those things are important, but being in a place where you're able to have fun try and have some freedom. I think it's really good, and the kids are really engaged and they enjoy it a lot from what I saw. So I think, yeah, it's really, really good for them.
In your opinion, how important are local facilities like these in London?
I think it's great to have something like this in London. As you saw, the kind of kids there, it was a really diverse group, a really big bunch of different backgrounds. Obviously, it's based in Battersea, so you have kids from living in Battersea Power Station, you have kids from maybe living in the nearby estates, you have different races, different religions. So I think stuff like this kind of represents London, where it's really diverse and it's really collaborative. I'd say, you know, you've got parents on the sidelines who are making friends as well as their children make friends with each other. So I think it's really cool.
Yeah, it's a nice way to get everybody to socialise, you know, outside of school and work. Definitely. So I want to ask, what role do coaches play in shaping lessons like these? I mean, how do they kind of differ from other academies?
Yeah, so the founder kind of told me that their position is that they want children to play in a stress-free environment without too much pressure on, you know, are they shooting the ball in the goal all the time, or is this pass going to work out or not? It's kind of giving them the opportunity to play without having this pressure on their shoulders, and that's how they achieve better things, and that's how they become better players. So I think coaches play such an important role because, you know, we all remember properly our teachers when we were younger, and coaches can become a mentor outside of the household. So yeah, they're really important. It's kind of that third person sometimes a child can speak to outside of the parents. And yeah, I saw like great relationships between the coaches and the children at the camps.
Yeah, I feel like in a way it probably helps to shape them as well for not even just adulthood, but just getting older in general. Do you guys agree?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I don't just think that this is offering sport or things like that. It's definitely offering social skills.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I just want to ask as well, what were the sessions like? You know, you were there.
Yeah, so I saw a lot of laughter, a lot of smiling from the kids, but also saw they kind of put them through different drills. So you have at the beginning they had the game thing was called Bulldog, if you guys know that game. So they had bibs tucked in into the shirt and they're trying to get it from one side to the other. So they had kind of like mission-based games where, you know, they got problem solving. Then they kind of went into football. They're doing kind of the basic ball mastery drills, like the founder said. And then they'd go into do matches. And I think in every single different kind of drill, there was a fun element involved. You know, if you got kids at a young age and you're kind of making them do, I guess, warm-ups and hands, star jumps all day, I don't think they're going to find it too fun. So I think in every single drill, there was like, okay, is there a goal at the end of this drill and is there fun at the end of this drill? I think I definitely saw that in person.
Yeah, it's so nice that it's bringing all aspects of the community together as well. Definitely. So important. And staying on the topic of sport, Rashad's got some of the biggest sports stories of the day.
Kicking off with football, this weekend a big event is happening. Tell us more.
Yeah, so this Sunday, the African Cup of Nations final is going to happen in Morocco. So this is massive because the tournament kicked off mid-December, I think. We're all the way to the end now, Senegal versus Morocco. So two massive African heavyweights. Morocco are actually the home nation. So I'd say they are the favourites. They have all the fans on their side. But Senegal did win AFCON, I think it was 2 tournaments back. So it's going to be really excited to watch it. It's been a great tournament so far. We've had some, you know, really tense penalty shootouts. Just the other day, Nigeria actually lost to Morocco on a penalty shootout. And it's just really, I feel like it's the best. It's at the pinnacle of a lot of players' careers, you know, representing their nation in front of all their fans. And yeah, I'm really excited to watch it.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be quite a tight game, to be honest. But I also want to think about, like, I feel like there were quite a lot of front runners that were kind of not even knocked out early, but like a lot of these teams had like quite a lot of potential. Like there was a lot of like Congo going around in the news, and Nigeria as well. They seemed like they were going to be quite front runners, which Nigeria was, but I'm not so sure about Congo.
Definitely, like even the nation that won AFCON last AFCON, Ivory Coast, they went out pretty early, and then you had Egypt losing to Senegal again. So you had players like Mohamed Salah actually going out, not making the final. So I think it's a competition where anything can happen. Senegal and Morocco are kind of the best teams already. We kind of knew that, but it's not always a thing where the best teams win. Sometimes the competition was underdog, but I think this time they were just these teenagers were just too good.
Yeah, exciting. Yes. And bringing it back to London, can you tell us about the biggest Premier League news for London clubs?
Yeah, so just literally an hour ago, we heard that Crystal Palace have been presented with a double whammy. So we've heard that both their captain and their manager are going to leave the season. So Mark Gay is going to join Man City for around 20 million in January. So that's an immediate transfer. This is massive because, you know, you've got a captain leaving at the middle of the season. So Palace are kind of not doing great. You know, they won the FA Cup last year for the first time in I don't remember how long. But this season they've been knocked out of the FA Cup by a non-league team. So you have that kind of news, and then you hear that the captain and the manager, Oliver Glasner, is leaving at the end of the season. So you're kind of presented with a great season, and this one being really, you know, you've got two different scenarios here. So I think it's quite harsh for them, for Crystal Palace fans. It's my local club in terms of where I live, so I don't feel great. I know there's some people who are kind of going to be devastated. I think there's always ways to get back up, but I think today's not a great day for Palace fans.
I do want to ask, it's quite a wide open question, but what do you think this will mean for the rest of the Premier League for them?
Yeah, I think for the rest of the Prem, it's helping them out because Palace I think they're currently 13th in the league. So all those teams around now, this is an opportunity to get past them because I expect them around to be low, especially with them being knocked out of FA Cup. I think they're still in Europe, so they might have a chance to win a trophy there, but something like this happening mid-season, it's really rare that they're going to really bounce back before the end of the season. So yeah, I think the other teams are going to be happy.
It's quite dire for them, to be honest.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for that, Rashad. Another form of wellbeing which has swept across London is Pilates. So Maliyah has been finding out more for us.
Workout centered on mindfulness and strength, Pilates is a growing hobby in London. Over the past few years, the controversy around it has also grown, with people saying that it's only a luxury and it's only built for people of a certain demographic. But 10 minutes away from Whitechapel Station is Open Mat Pilates, a place that openly challenges this, saying that Pilates is indeed for everyone.
So my name is Marzia. I'm a mat Pilates instructor. I've been working here for like a month now. So I do the community classes. I teach over 50s chair Pilates for the community there. So that's really nice. I was coming to the classes before as well, yeah. So I actually found the classes on Eventbrite. And then I started coming, and then I got chatting to Vic, and then I was like in the middle of passing my Pilates exam. And then yeah, she said that I can start teaching classes here. So it's a lot of beginner classes. I think people that are like getting introduced to Pilates, which is nice. There are some intermediate mixed level ones as well. So on Thursday, like the 6 p.m. is a bit more intermediate, and then the 7 p.m. is made more for beginners. And then yeah, so on Mondays it's the over 50s chair Pilates. That's a community class just in Aldgate East. Yeah, so that's very different demographic. I would say meeting new people, because you're going to different places to teach. So there's this studio and then there's other community classes. It's really nice to see different communities and just constantly meeting new people. And I think because there's such a friendly environment, a lot of the participants in the classes seem to feel quite comfortable coming up to you after class and asking questions and advice in general. So it's really nice. I feel like I'm always staying back just to chat with people. Yeah, I think it's amazing. I think that Pilates has become like this, almost like it's been marketed as like a luxury when it wasn't created to be that way. It was created to be accessible. The whole history of it is that it's meant to be, you know, something that can be rehabilitative. I think I'm saying that right. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's amazing that there's something like this where people can come and anyone can afford it and get the benefits from the practice. Yeah, I'm someone who started Pilates just from my bedroom doing YouTube videos. So it's nice to actually be able to come for free or for a decent price and get the advice from a professional to fix your form or to do it in the right way so that you're not injuring yourself.
Yeah. And when you have these classes and you like teach these classes, do you see like a diverse range of people?
Yes, definitely. I think there's always the familiar faces that you see all the time. But I think in East London as well, it's a diverse area in general. So you get all types of people. You can tell, you know, who's coming just from after work, who's coming consistently. You have people bringing their friends along. So I think it's nice. You meet different people every week.
Hi, I'm Vic. I'm the founder of Open Mat Pilates. We're a community interest company and we're all about making Pilates and mat-based exercises as affordable as possible. At the moment, we do 5 free classes a week, and then we have a variety of paid classes that are constantly changing. I was practicing Pilates, loving it. It was helping to change my body, to just help my mental well-being, and it got to the point where I couldn't afford it anymore. So I decided to learn, then fell in love with actually being an instructor, and yeah, I think the affordability element of it inspired me to think about a different business model that would enable us to be able to deliver it for free and for very low cost. I mean, ultimately, the pricing element doesn't have any strategy behind it, which is why we're kind of struggling as a community interest company. But I think experiencing setting up a studio within London, I understand why those prices are £20-30, like rent, utilities, business rates, everything in London is incredibly expensive. Our business model tries to avoid all of those costs, and we feed that into what the community pay for it. So yeah, £10 doesn't really cover the cost of our booking platforms. I think we will take anyone and everyone. We really want to encourage beginners. Ultimately, there's sort of 3 elements of what we're doing, and one of those pillars is helping instructors that have just passed their certification get the practice they need. So ultimately, the classes that we deliver shouldn't be really advanced. They are beginner, and they should always be sort of focused on people that are just coming into experiencing Pilates.
What do you think about the kind of controversies that have been kind of surrounding Pilates right now? Like, people say it's kind of a luxury. Like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, there was that whole Pilates Body by Raven kind of controversy. But I mean, I agree with what she said. Like, ultimately, people train for years to deliver Pilates at a certain level, and if that's what you're looking for, really highly specialized, focused on you, you have to pay for that service. That person has trained for years to get to that level. I think there's a lot of space for making it as accessible as possible. It doesn't need to be elite, and like Mars said earlier, where it started is rehabilitation. So, and in a book that you could do at home. I think every single person should get into Pilates, basically. I just went on holiday with my dad, and he's 66, and we would, he's like a young man in an old man's body. He just wants to jump and go around, and actually his joints are letting him down. Like, he fell over maybe 4 or 5 times. Luckily he didn't really hurt himself, but as we get older, we need to take care of our flexibility, our mobility, our strength, our tendons, our ligaments, and all of this stuff is really beneficial with Pilates.
And now Maliyah is joining me on the other side of the sofa. Welcome. Hey. Those classes look great. I love the building. Very aesthetically pleasing.
Yes, the classes were really good.
Yeah, lovely. So I just firstly wondered, how popular is Pilates in London specifically?
Pilates is something that's definitely growing, especially in London. I think over the past few years, it's become a lot more popular. And I think, well, this is kind of my speculation, but I think it's mainly because of factors like COVID, because everyone was shut in, they were at home, and they were finding ways to kind of pass time and also get fit. And I think one of the easiest, or maybe not easiest, but one of the easiest ways to do things at home was things like yoga, Pilates, or dance classes. So I think that's what started the Pilates craze. And now, we're getting way more kind of availability and like more spaces opening up for people to do Pilates outside of their homes, so like classes and buildings, even like down the road there's actually a Pilates class there.
Really?
Yeah, there is. But yeah, I think like reasons for it becoming more popular like this year as well is that stress levels in the capital have risen drastically, and that was reported by No, sorry, actually. No, it was, sorry, burnout and stress has been reported to have risen by World Health Organization. So factors like cost of living and just being in such a place where it's just kind of work, 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 and you're in such a busy area, it kind of makes you want to get into these workouts more. I don't know if you feel the same, but I definitely feel that way.
Definitely. I also agree with your point about COVID. I personally got into it during lockdown.
So did I.
And I think while that's great to like try and get fit on your own, it's quite scary. You can do a lot of damage by yourself if you don't know what you're doing. So it's really nice that there's classes with instructors and they can show you how to properly do things so that you don't actually damage yourself in the long run.
Exactly.
Yeah. And throughout the video, the controversy surrounding Pilates is mentioned. I just wondered whether you could dive into that a little bit more.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just been me, but I've been seeing on my social media, especially last year, it was quite rampant because of this girl called, that she's on the screen now. Her name was Pilates by Raven. She kind of released a video giving her take, I guess, on why Pilates is expensive and not diverse. And people kind of piggybacked off of that, saying that Pilates is a luxury and it's made more for white people or white women. And then that kind of got a lot of backlash and people decided that no, it's actually not, and Pilates is for everyone because it was created by a circus performer that was in prison and he did it for everyone, you know, he did it to become accessible. So it was like quite a lot of discourse. And another thing that was quite a big part of this course was the price of Pilates, because on average a Pilates class is around £20 to £30 per class, and I think a lot of us can agree that that is quite expensive, especially for one singular class. And if you keep taking those classes, let's say you do 2 per week, that can build up quite fast. So a lot of people are saying that that's why they see Pilates as a luxury, because it is only it's literally something you could just like barely afford. But I do think it's strange how a workout meant for relaxation and kind of building mindfulness created such a kind of nasty discourse, to be honest. I don't know what you think about that.
I definitely agree. I've seen a lot on social media of that kind of narrative that it's only kind of a certain body type and image and things like that. And it's really good that Open Mat are kind of changing that stereotype. And also the price as well, like you touched on, it is so expensive, especially if you want to like keep it up and things like that. So I'd love to know how you found out about Open Mat and what did you find the classes were like?
Yeah, I found out about the classes through a TikTok actually that was posted by a woman who attended the class. I don't know if the TikTok's gonna come up on here, but yeah. But the TikTok, it was basically just a woman kind of explaining that these classes are free and that they're based in East London, which is like for me personally, it's easy to get to. It was only half an hour from where I live. So and she was explaining that they're free and that they're kind of open for everyone, that the main point of them is to be affordable and for everyone. But yeah, that's how I found out. So then I contacted Vic, who owns Open Mat Pilates, and we had a conversation and she actually let me join a class, which was nice. My legs were burning at the end. But it was really fun. And one thing I found out about the class is that this wasn't a free class. It was a class that cost £10, which I still find very cheap, very affordable. And even though there were a good few people there, you still had your own space to kind of do your own thing. And even during that class, Vic was very like hands-on. She was helping. She was kind of making sure that your form was correct. Obviously, with consent, she like touched you, make sure that your that your leg was straight enough, it was high enough, and things like that. And one thing that I found actually quite considerate, because I went during November, it was very cold, so she actually moved us upstairs to a warmer section with a heater, so that we weren't freezing cold during the class.
So nice.
Yes, I thought that was really nice.
Yeah, especially I think they can be quite daunting places to go into. So the fact that she's obviously made it really welcoming and a nice space to hang around, it's really nice.
Yeah, the environment was very nice, very welcoming and very calming actually, which I think is the main part.
Definitely. The whole point, yeah.
Literally.
And then finally, I wondered whether you would consider the classes to be accessible.
Me, I definitely think the classes were accessible. Definitely in terms of price, because you can't go any lower than free. Like you can't. I think it's basically something that everybody can afford. But I think the only issue would be, I guess, availability, because if everybody finds out about these free classes, you know, they're going to be booked up quite quick, and then you're not going to be sure when to kind of book your own class, or you might not have time to book it on a certain day that it is available, or you might feel a bit uncomfortable being in a, I guess, a more busy class. But I think that's what the £5 and £10 classes are for. So if you can afford to splurge out a little bit, you can just go to a slightly cheaper class and get the same level of intimate kind of training and practice. And when I went there, I saw that there was a range of different people. So there were men in the class, women, there were people of different races, different religions, different body types, which I think is very important, because there's also been discourse about what body type can partake in Pilates, which I think is a bit sick personally. But I think also the area might contribute to that, because it was in East London. East London is quite a diverse area, so that might be the reason that there were so many more people. But it would be nice to see, I guess, people from all over London, or maybe all over the UK, kind of visit Pilates and give them that kind of, not only the business, but just give them that nice kind of community.
It's so interesting you said about the price levels, as if you can always pay £5 or £10, so it's more accessible to people on all different types of levels.
Yeah,
that's really interesting. Well, thank you so much for speaking with me. The classes look great, and I'd love to go myself.
Yes, you should.
But sadly, that is all we have time for this afternoon. But I've had a great time. I think my favourite video is probably Evie's pottery video. I feel like that's really inspired me to kind of get my creative juices flowing and make something with my hands.
I actually really enjoyed Chris's video. I found it so interesting how powerlifting is becoming more popular, to the point where like gyms are kind of dedicating their own sections to them. I definitely will not be trying that, but it's nice to see that people are kind of finding more things that they're interested in, and more sports to partake in.
Yeah, from a fitness point of view, definitely. But don't forget that you can always follow the Londoners News on YouTube channel and the rest of our socials.
And you can also find our fellow journalists, Ella and Mackenzie, taking you through some of our London community stories on that YouTube.
Thank you for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, bye.